420,000 views. That is the amount of views that this tweet about AI and art has reached in only 5 days, and this has really blown up. And now people are calling for the boycott of an author, and people are angry. So today I want to delve into this tweet, why it blew up, what has happened since this was posted, and also what people are missing about this whole controversy. Before we start, I'll just state that I am actually a bit of an expert about AI in publishing, since I actually wrote my master's thesis in business strategy and innovation management on the perception and adoption of AI in the publishing industry, and I interviewed multiple people, both authors and marketing people and editors, as part of my research, so I'll use some of my findings from my thesis as evidence in this video as well. And I'll say this right now, I think it's important for you as a reader to be well informed about this topic, because at the moment this is a really hot topic and people have a lot of strong opinions about this, and if you share your opinion and you say something unpopular, then people might get very angry at you. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay that people get cancelled or whatnot for not agreeing with most authors and artists on this topic. I'm just letting you know that there are risks of stating your opinion about AI art, and if I'm being honest, I do understand why people get so angry, but I also feel like we need to get to a place where we can actually discuss this in a more productive manner, because AI is simply not going anywhere. So please be kind to me as I try to address this topic, and also please inform me where you think I went wrong. Okay, firstly, what is this whole controversy I'm referring to, and why is this tweet currently blowing up? Here's a recap. And it's also worth mentioning that this whole thread is directed at authors first and foremost, but I think also readers will find it very interesting. The CEO of Wraithmark, Bryce went to Twitter on the 15th of April and tweeted 10 tweets, which led to more than 1,000 retweets, and also it reaching more than 420,000 people as of 20th of April 2024. And with people retweeting and replying and tweets being deleted, I will cover everything you need to know. Now, this thread is quite long, so I would encourage you to go to Bryce's Twitter and actually read it, but I will summarize the points he makes. Firstly, Bryce states that if you use AI art, then lots of readers will not pick up your book because AI art is perceived as lazy and shoddy work, so you will lose a significant portion of the market if you do so. Now, the second point he makes is that your reputation will be severely damaged, since according to Bryce, 99% of authors do not want to be associated with AI, so if you use AI art, then you might ruin your chances of working with other prevalent creators such as Felix Ortiz or Lockwood in the future. Now, the third point he makes is that your marketability will be severely damaged, since you won't have the support of the writing community, which is essential when you're trying to get your book off the ground. Bryce states that no author or booktuber will want to promote such a book. And then Bryce concludes by saying that by trying to save maybe $1,000 in the cover, you are actually paying a much higher price, and you won't actually save that much money in the long run, since in the end no one will buy your book. So there is an insane amount of things to unpack here, and I simply cannot go into detail about every single point he makes in this tweet, since that will probably take me hours. But let's break this down. First point, a lot of readers will not pick up your book if you use AI art. Now, I think that this point is probably true, but I am unsure how many people outside of the book community online really care, if I'm being honest. Yes, if you look on Twitter and BookTube and so on, it would seem that everyone is against AI art and so on, but outside of this community, I'm actually not sure. I mean, many of my colleagues that I work with really enjoy reading, and I have never heard any of them mention that they care about who has made the cover art or if it's an AI cover and so on. Genuinely, how many people do you think that go to Waterstones or any bookstore and check if the cover is made by AI? Maybe some do, but I will think that that number is very small. So I'm actually not sure if this point that Bryce makes here is backed up by data, or if this is an assumption made by having been influenced by being surrounded by lots of authors and artists. But I do think Bryce's other points he makes in this thread have much more merit. So let's turn to point 2 and 3, which is that your reputation in the writing community and that your marketability will be severely damaged. Now, my master's thesis focused significantly on the perception of AI within the publishing industry, so I have a lot to say here. Now, is Bryce's thesis that your reputation might get damaged if you use AI correct here? Well, from the 7 people I interviewed, 6 of them had a very negative perception of AI, and 1 had a negative perception but thought that AI would eventually turn into a really good thing for the publishing industry. Now, my main findings show that people that work in the industry have negative perceptions of AI for various reasons. For example, some of the themes that emerged from our research included the fear of AI replacing jobs, the potential for AI to remove or minimize the need for creators, and several noted that currently AI tends to dehumanize art. For example, one participant that I interviewed mentioned that people are against AI creating covers because it removes the human element and no one likes to see humans being replaced by machines. Now, another participant stated that it was not in the interest of the publishing industry to use AI for some tasks, such as writing manuscripts, stating that you're basically cannibalizing your own industry from the inside if you start removing human creators. Now, another participant asked the question, do I want to live in a world with art made by other humans that I connect to? Or do I want to live in a world with basically mass-produced garbage that is increasingly meaningless? Wow, what a question that is. Now, secondly, a lot of people I interviewed mentioned that AI is filled with ethical issues, where the technology is currently utilizing copyright material without the owner's consent, and currently authors are not receiving any compensation if an AI uses their creative work. And yes, I think that this is a major problem and a really good reason for not using AI art as it stands. Third, it was pointed out that the perception at the moment is that AI development is driven by monetary gains, and the focus is not on strengthening the publishing industry, but generating more money by removing people from the industry. And fourthly, several concerns were raised that AI increases the quantity of content, but not necessarily the quality. Since AI can generate new content sometimes in seconds, several participants were concerned that it could make it more challenging for authors to actually get discovered. Moreover, having a large amount of generated content would actually diminish the work of real authors. I mean, one participant stated, when you can have an infinite variety of something, then it loses all value. That's a very interesting point, isn't it? So let's get back to Bryce's tweet. Does Bryce state the truth here when he says that using AI will probably diminish your marketability and give you a negative reputation in the writing community? Well, according to my research, there definitely seems to be evidence that implies that Bryce is correct here. Now, it's a whole another question about whether it's right for a person to have their reputation diminished if they use AI art, but if you do decide to go down that route, just be mindful that it can lead to dire consequences for your career. Now, the last point Bryce makes is probably the most controversial and maybe the reason why people also had a strong negative reaction to this tweet, stating that trying to save $1,000 or $1,500 is not worth it because you're going to destroy your reputation. And while he does also acknowledge that this is a huge amount of money that he just mentioned, it does kind of feel like he's not fully appreciating how much money that is for a lot of people. Nonetheless, I think that Bryce's point here is still really valid. I mean, what are you really saving if you destroy your reputation? I mean, yes, you might be able to save $1,000 by using AI art, but if you don't sell any books because you've isolated yourself in the community, then you actually haven't saved anything. Now, before I turn to the things that I often feel are left out of this conversation, I want to turn to the response to this controversy because some people did not agree. Firstly, author Devin Erickson replied, which then led to people calling for his boycott because he stated, "You convinced me to use AI art as much as conveniently possible going forward." Why? Because this argument boils down to, don't use this tool or we will hurt you. That's not advertisements, that's a threat. Now, he then goes on to state that capitalism is the greatest economic system in the known universe because it creates win-win situations, exchanges of mutual benefits. Buy my product or my friends and I will hurt you doesn't qualify. Now, I will also leave a link below for the whole tweet, so please go and check it out as well. But basically, the plot thickened here, and Bryce then replied stating, "That's your right, Devin. As long as you're aware of the heavy costs and risk you are taking on by stealing from other creatives in order to gain the smallest of advantages, that's your right. This tweet already cost you the chance to work with a lot of great people," as an example. Now, Bryce actually had another tweet first where he kinda insulted Devin, which he then deleted and apologized for. And I'll just say this, I really do applaud people when they admit their mistakes and apologize. So in this case, Really well done, Bryce. So we now have a situation where one of the most innovative people in the fantasy publishing industry, Bryce O'Connor, is beefing with another author that has 37,000 followers on Twitter, and simultaneously Bryce's tweet is blowing up. And after Devin's tweet, I saw some bloggers stating that they would not read any of Devin's books after his stance on AI. I mean, wow. Now, I think one of the reasons why Bryce's tweet blew up is because you don't really know what tone Bryce is using here. Now, myself and I think a lot of other people read this tweet as an informative thread that highlighted some of the inherent risks of using AI currently, and I personally did not see this as anyone threatening anyone. But having thought more about it, I do appreciate that this tweet can be read as a threat to people wanting to use AI art, and that's probably where all the controversy started. I mean, if you read Bryce's thread as an informative thread, then I don't think most people will have any issues with it. But if you read it as a do this or else kind of thread, then yes, it might leave a bad taste in your mouth. Nonetheless, I think that overall, Bryce makes some really important points here that authors need to be aware of. I mean, if you want to publish, then you are working in a community and climate that does not perceive AI positively as it stands. And I think both the reaction on Twitter and my research into this area proves that. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about this area, especially after having studied it quite intensely for 3 months, and therefore I want to highlight some other areas that are often not talked about enough in this discussion. Firstly, I do not have a solution here, but I do not think it's helpful to try and cancel people or send hate reviews or hate mail or whatever whenever this topic comes up. Now, I fully understand why people have a strong emotional response, and for all the authors and artists out there, I just want to let you know I am on your side. However, we also have to admit that AI is not going to go anywhere. AI is here to stay, and therefore we need to find a way to make AI work for both artists and authors. Now, one person I interviewed for my thesis stated that the primary problem with AI art is not the fact that it creates art, but it's the fact that artists and authors are not compensated. Now, this particular participant stated that currently AI art is stealing, and therefore we need to get to a place where legislation is in place that requires that artists gets paid if their art is used in AI. Currently, this is not happening, and therefore I think AI art is inherently bad. But if we could get to a place where authors and artists are fairly compensated, would that potentially solve the issue? Now, I'm not 100% sure if that would actually solve the problem totally, but it will definitely be some progress. Now, what do you think? Secondly, this same participant also talked about how an AI could help authors write better stories. Now, I thought this was so interesting, and that's why I will include it in this video. For example, this participant mentioned, now imagine this, you are writing a crime novel and you could ask an AI to find plot holes or inconsistencies, and then the AI would actually find them. Imagine how cool that would be. That would mean that you could then actually go back to your novel and rewrite it to make it even better. So that's also one potential future benefit of having AI in the publishing industry. Thirdly, and this was particularly interesting, the same participant stated that the rise of AI is very similar to the rise of photography. Now, when cameras started to pop up like around 100 years ago, a lot of painters looked down upon people taking photos because taking a picture demanded no work at all. Now, while a painter might have spent 10 hours painting a mountain, a photographer could take a photo of the same mountain within a couple of seconds. Now, we know that photography is today seen as a very legit art form and as a good thing along with painting. Now, the question then arises, can we create a future where art and illustration can live alongside AI, similarly to how painting and photography was able to find a way to coexist? Now, I don't claim to have all the answers, but in summary, this is what I think. Yes, I do not think using AI art is ethically right or beneficial for the publishing industry as it stands due to its immense ethical issues. I do see myself agreeing a lot with Bryce O'Connor here, that if you decide to use AI, then you do run a huge risk of isolating yourself, and as it stands, I do not think that that's a risk worth taking. Now, personally, I am not interested in reading anything that is using AI, and I could make a whole another video about why. But it basically boils down to AI having so many ethical issues and the fact that art inherently seems to be something that should belong to humans. Now, I might change my mind about this in the future, but currently this is where I stand. That being said, I do also think we need to find a way to make AI work in a way that benefits authors and artists due to the simple fact that AI is not going away. Now, I do not know what that looks like, but I just know that we need to find a way to make it work for creatives. But what are your thoughts on AI and the publishing industry? Do you agree with Bryce or Devin, or do you have a whole different opinion? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Now, if you enjoyed discussions like these, then I would highly recommend checking out this video I did with Philip Chase where we discussed your unpopular opinions. Oh, you're still here and you want more? Well, the good news is that if you want more and you want to support me, then I do have a Patreon. Now, if you didn't know, then I have a Viking book club where every single month we read one book together, and you can be the one that can put the book forward. Last month we read this book, and this month we're reading this book. And at the moment we are trialing having Zoom book club discussions after everyone has read the book. So also if you want to discuss a book with me and other like-minded people, then the Patreon is the way to go. Now, in addition to getting your name in my videos, joining the Viking book club, potentially getting art cards depending on what tier you are, I am also basically spending around 100% of my Patreon income to reinvest back into my channel. Since I launched my Patreon, I have had more than 30 videos professionally edited. And just to give an example, from September 2023 to March 2024, I have spent more than $1,500 into video editing with the aim to consistently post high quality videos for you to enjoy. It is much appreciated.